Hey guys, it's Drew again to introduce the latest episode of the Gear Guys podcast, this time hosted by Ricky, the curator of Ricky's Picks. How you doing, man?
Just fine and dandy, Drew. Just fine and dandy.
That's good, that's good. Now who'd you invite to have on the show this week?
I have the one and only, thank God, Joe Caravella of The Ring. Joe started his career when he was just 12 years old at the legendary CBGBs and has been a professional musician for 40 years.
Wow, CBGB, that's not an iconic place to have a first gig. My first gig was in my parents' backyard.
Oh, that's just like Van Halen. Who showed up?
My parents. But anyway, what else do you guys talk about?
We talked about his album Storm, which I love, and how COVID has affected his career.
Cool. That sounds great. We'll get right into the interview now. Hope you guys enjoy it.
See you later.
See you.
Well, we're live from the bedroom. It's Rick with my good friend Joe Caravella. Joe's been a musician for all of his professional life, correct, Joe?
Beyond, actually.
And full disclosure, we have an unusual love for the rock band Enough's Enough.
Yes.
Joe is here because I really think he's got a great story to tell. And I'm the worst interviewer ever. Welcome aboard, Joe. I'm like Merv Griffin. I'm going to sit here and go, ooh, ah.
Ooh.
So,
don't worry, I can talk.
So let's go. I want to start right from the beginning. How did your career start? What was your first gig?
My very first gig, I was 12 years old, and I was in a band called the Dented Eyeballs. We were a punk rock band, and we had such incredible songs such as Breastfeeding Ducks.
One of my favorites, yes.
Incest is Best.
Mm-hmm.
And Mutilated Baby Legs was my particular favorite.
I think Dick Clark said that it was a good beat, but you couldn't really dance to it. I'm not sure.
Not without concussing yourself. And
right.
But we did an all ages show. I was only 12 years old at the time. Mm-hmm. And my father had to accompany me to CBGBs. And it turns out that it was the late summer, early autumn. When you're 12 years old, you're not thinking that you'd have to tell the tale,
right.
50 years on or whatever, 40 years on. But I'll make myself older than I need to be.
We can't help it. We're getting old every day,
Yeah, that senility is just setting in. But I was 12 years old. It was like the late summer, early autumn of 1977. And when I walked through the door of CBGB's, I knew something was amiss. Give you a little backstory real quick. I grew up listening to my father's music, which means I listened to everything. I listened to everything from King Pleasure, and from a little kid, Stan Getz Trio, to the Highwaymen, the High Lows, the Kingston Trio, John Denver, to Led Zeppelin and Frank Zappa, and all points in between: Beatles, Beach Boys, Bee Gees, Badfinger. So my father set the tone for me, because my father was a recording artist in the late 50s, early 60s with a doo-wop group.
Right.
So it's ingrained in me. By 1977, I was developing my own taste in music, as well as what my father instilled in me. So I had just, for my birthday, I had gotten the first Blondie album. I got Talking Heads. Some Ramones. The Ramones had like the second album or third album. It was Rocket to Russia, had just come out in 77. So I was just forming my own taste. I got the first Elvis Costello album. So I was like going, this is my music now. This is my music. Not my dad's, this is mine. But I walked into CBGB's, and the first thing I noticed when I walked through the door.
I know it's coming. I'm sorry we don't have scratch and sniff on the screen, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. But the first thing I noticed was the overwhelming stench of beer and toilet patties, toilet cakes. It's funny how the smell of the bathroom, which is all the way behind the stage, hit you right from the front door. You walk in, and it just smells like toilet. And then I noticed Clem Burke and Chris Stein standing at the bar, and I'm going, I'm 12 years old, so now I'm going, Dad, that's Blondie over there, or at least two guys from Blondie. And my father's like going, who the hell's Blondie? And then I noticed Chris Franz and Tina Weymouth from the Heads standing next to them. Now I'm in shades of terror. I'm in absolute shades of terror because I got to get on stage in a little bit. And I got a couple of guys from Blondie and a couple of guys from the Talking Heads. So my father walks in and he goes, I get you a Coke. And we walk up to the bar and he orders himself a drink and he orders me a Coke. And Clem Burke looks down at me and kind of elbows me in the side of the head, you know, and goes, "Hey, what are you doing in here, kid?" And I'm going, "I'm with one of the bands." And he goes, "How old are you?" You know, just like that. And I'm like, I went like this, like, 12. I'm with my dad. You know, just like that.
Right.
He started laughing. And he bought me my first alcoholic beverage ever.
No, gee, well, don't say that because he's out gigging, and in today's society, that could be.
Oh, that's true.
That could work against us.
We don't want that.
No, that's awesome.
Well, here's the thing. We're in 2021, but this is in 1977, so we had
different time. Yeah,
different times, different ways we behaved, and rock and roll has never been known for being the domicile of the nice guy.
Of political, yes, it's political correctness and all that. Plus, at that time, the Bronx was burning, so that's got to be pretty interesting that you.
And you got to remember that was the mayor Abe Beam and Hugh Carey.
Yeah.
Or was it John Lindsay? I can't remember. It was one of those two clowns. Was the governor? It was before the Cuomo stuff started happening. So forget about those people. But New York was a mess, and CBGB was an even bigger mess than the city itself. But man, I went on stage and I played, and I told my father I wanted to hang out. And before I went on stage, Clem goes, "I want you to meet somebody." And he walks me over. My father's just watching from the bar. He's just letting me be me, which is very cool of my dad. I got to give my dad a lot of props. My father was very, very into music, and he wanted me to follow my direction.
Oh, good.
So he just let me go walk with the guys from Blondie. And we sat down at the table, and there's this really pretty blonde girl at the table. And I noticed that it was Debbie. And I'm just like, so he goes, Clem goes, "This little guy's going to be playing tonight. You believe that?" And she goes, "Why don't you come here and sit on my lap?" And she patted her lap.
I may have to have a moment after that, to be honest with you, but okay.
Huh?
I may have to have a moment.
Yeah, could you imagine that?
Imagine.
First thing I did is I rested my head right on her boobs. I knew right what I was doing. I rested my head right on her chest. She looked like she was pretty wasted, so she may not remember. She may remember. Who knows? It's stuff of fantasy. Who knows? But it was definitely a fantasy for me. I was a pubescent boy, 12 years old. I knew what I liked already.
All right. Well, listen, I actually saw them play not too long ago at the Union County Music Festival, excuse me. And, she looked great and she did a great job, still out there.
For a woman who's in her 70s, she's still working.
Yeah. It's, old, not much younger than my mother, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, I think she's about the same age as mine.
So, overall, though, we're all dealing with the reality of COVID, and what came to mind with you is you're a guy that was out there, playing and playing and playing and playing. So how has COVID really kind of affected your career at this point?
Well, oh my God. Well, subsequent to opening for the Ramones in 77, I formed my band The Rain in 86. Right. So 85, actually, 86, we did our first show in 86. It took us about a year to get stage ready.
Okay.
But we released some albums, and we released an album in March of last year called Storm. Mm-hmm. And we were all set and raring to go out and do shows to promote the album. And we released the album on March 17th. And I think by March 21st to 22nd, New York was thrown into a complete shutdown. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I had about 138 gigs booked. About 60 of them were band or at least duo related with me and the bass player. Mm-hmm. And his name is Ben, by the way. Ben Laughing Rose is my bass player. And then the rest was solo shows. But I always promote my new stuff. So my album suffered because we put out an album and there was no way for us to perform the material from it in front of an audience to get people aware that the album is even out there. And I hate to say it, you know, as much as social media has done a lot for people in a lot of ways, it's really hard to stand out when you're a band on social media, because not only are you going up against like not anymore Tom Petty, but the Paul McCartneys and the Bruce Springsteens and the Bon Jovis that are, you know, just envelope.
There's a lot of competition out there.
You're going up against every cover band that plays on, you know, in New York's case, there's about 8,000, 9,000 cover bands just on Long Island alone. Not even 5 boroughs, you know, Manhattan or the 4 outer boroughs. So you're dealing with about 15,000 bands, all on social media, all vying for attention. Then you get all the original bands that New York, New Jersey, tri-state area, and they're all, and you can't get everybody's attention all the time. Right. And people tend to gravitate to the bands that their friends are in. So unless you have about 30,000 friends, which I don't know anybody who really does, you're not going to get much headway from social media. So it's hard to get people directed to like Spotify or Pandora, which our music is on.
Right.
But you know what? They only pay you a fraction of a penny. You know, in the old days, if you sold a single, you know, if the single sold for 89 and 99 cents at the store, you know, you would get 45 or 50 cents, and you get at least half of that. Now you're getting half of a penny for every time. So I got a song that we did a cover of The Cure's "Killing an Arab" a few years back, and we're almost at a million streams on that song between Spotify, Pandora, Tidal, iHeartRadio, and such.
So my question, what does that translate to these days? You know, a million streams sounds like a lot, right?
A million streams, you would think a million streams. That's a hit record. In most cases, if I sold a million singles, that's a platinum single. So I've got a million streams, and I've equated to $100 in cash.
Okay. Can I borrow $99, please? My friend Joe is an a million streamer. That's what I'm going to get you T-shirts for that. That's it sounds very important, but yes, I totally understand it. You know, it's
terrible.
It's a little frustrating. You know, I hear that story all the time.
Here at Novell Global, we are the industry leader in fine jewelry craftsmanship. Our handcrafted and custom designed rings, meticulously crafted from the finest precious metals, are perfect for all of your needs, whether that be for an engagement, a wedding, or for everyday fashion. All of our rings are made in America and have been since 1988.
So to wrap things up, I said your latest album, Storm, it's very diverse,
all over the place.
but it's not cliche. You know, I don't hear one thing and say, oh, well, he obviously was listening to the Beatles that day. It is a combination of a lot of different sounds. So give me the elevator pitch about that album, because my good friends over at Music Life and whatever that website is, I don't know. Gave you a great review. Music, Food, and Life. I'm sorry, it's I stutter every once in a while. We just deal with it. Good album, great album. Love it. Love everything about it. So give me the elevator pitch about how you came up with it, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Basically, I take a long time to make an album, and I've been writing songs since I'm 15 years old, and I have over 400 original compositions. So what I basically do is I go through all my songs, and I decide which 18 or 19 songs I'm going to put on an album. I just, whatever hits me that day, and that's how the albums get assembled, is I pick the songs that I'm most interested in doing at that particular moment. And then I take about 6 years to record. With financial, I don't have a record company behind me, which is the biggest thing. So I don't have anybody stake costing me. So, after I'm done paying rent and phone bills and cable bills and food bills and pet food bills, whatever's left over, I squirrel nut it away. And when I have enough for 10 hours in the studio, I go and do my 10 hours, and then I go home and I got to wait until I can squirrel. And, on the average, the studio is 40 an hour. So 10 hours is 400. The Storm album cost me about 14 grand to record out of my own pocket.
That's more than I make a year, by the way.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I've got to sell a lot of Slurpees, to make 14,000. A lot of Slurpees there, Joe. Yeah. I tell you, I feel your pain.
Man, well, I gotta do about 3 gigs to make $400.
Yeah.
That's, okay. In New York, because they don't pay much.
Right.
Clubs don't pay much. If they could get away with paying you $50 for 3 or 4 hours of work, they will.
Right.
I won't settle for that. But I've played for as low as $100, which is pretty sad when you got 45 years on the music scene under your belt.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Storm album is I like to say it sounds like The Rain, but yeah, there are specific influences that naturally
they come out.
Play the Beatles and Cheap Trick and the Knack and Raspberries and without question, Enough's Enough certainly fall in line. We also have some grungy influences too, because I did like Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots. Although it's not as representative on this album, there are a couple of songs that are definitely have a little bit of a grunge influence. Tear Down and Imaginary End are two in particular. But the most of it's like a power pop, Beatlesque, early Bee Gees, pre-disco when they were still doing that Baroque.
That is a very interesting reference. I just watched the documentary on the Bee Gees' career, and I'm more fascinated between up until they went disco. I'm interested in their early career, and they're great. They're awesome. I mean, they're awesome even at disco. But
they made one album in particular which really, really blew my mind, and I heard it when I was a little kid. I was 3 years old when I was exposed to that album. That's the Odessa album. That was the album that had a red velvet album cover, very ornate, 2-album set. It was their Sgt. Pepper's,
right?
And the record companies, I don't think the record companies really know what they're doing with bands half the times, because that album should have been a monster in that era, and it just kind of died a quiet, sad death. And it was just, but the same thing is true with the Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle,
right? Which
is another huge influence on my album and on me as a composer and writer and producer. So it's a lot of albums. People go to easy route and go, yeah, you guys sound like the Beatles, but it's more to it than that.
Right.
I think any musician worth his weight in salt is going to, if you're a heavier musician, you're going to gravitate towards Everybody's Got Something to Hide and Helter Skelter and Year Blues. And if you've got more pop sensibility, you're geared towards whatever, Norwegian Wood and Nowhere Man. So, but the Beatles are just a small sampling. I tend to think that we're more influenced as an artist by Badfinger, which was supposed to be the next Beatles.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the most tragic stories in rock and roll, to be honest with you.
I happen to be friends with the last surviving member, Joey Mulholland.
Yeah, Joey has a new album out. It's great.
Oh, it's great.
You actually turned me on to it. It's really, really good. And my buddy from high school, Tom Curlis, is he's very big into power pop. He's got like 18 albums out. He's very influenced by Badfinger, and he always is, throwing out the Badfinger reference. And tremendous band. Horrible story though.
Horrible story. Here's a true story. Me and my girlfriend Joanne, we went to see Joey Mulholland at the winery,
right?
In Manhattan. So I'm telling and she knows I'm friends with a lot of musicians, and established musicians. Randy, I met my girlfriend through Randy Jackson of Zebra.
Right. Okay.
After my marriage ended, I was so despondent that my wife had left me.
Right.
And Randy goes, look, I know this girl. She's a great girl, and you're gonna like her. And she's just her and her husband are ending their thing, and she might be just the person for you. And he kind of introduced us, and that was a beautiful thing. But I told her, I go, we're going to go see Badfinger, and so I go, I know Joey. I know Joey, and she goes, yeah, I know. She goes, yeah, you know everybody. She just kind of like, because she just thinks, so everybody. So she didn't know that I knew him. And we sat down, we ate dinner, we watched the show, and afterwards he did like a autograph signing thing. And I had brought a copy of our first album with me to give to him, which is this one, The Long Wait. And I brought him a copy, and I actually autographed it to Joey Mulholland. Love Joe Caravella, your buddy. And
no charge.
And we walked up to the autograph table, and he's got all these people around him, all these fans and stuff. And he's a short little guy. Joey is tiny. Joey's like 5'5" with like flat.
With his shoes on. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, it's great. He's like tiny little dude. I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5'9", and I'm just like towering. I got a picture of me and him side by side, and he's like his top of his head comes like to the bottom of my ear. It's great. He's peering. Because he saw my hair before anything else. He's looking. And he went, and he just yelled, "Joe from the rain!" Just there like that. Joey Mulholland, a Badfinger, and
the Warriors.
And my girlfriend was just like this.
Who is the guy? Who are you?
Who are you? Well, you get the guys from Badfinger to scream your band's name, So that was a pretty cool. But she also gets a kick out of me and Chip. Whenever
who doesn't, to be honest.
Whenever I see Chip, whenever me and Chip get together,
he's an old.
I swear to God, Rick, he grabs me by my hair, pulls my head to his, and he kisses me dead on the lip.
Yes, he wants your hair. To be honest with you, that's another story for another day. So Joe, we're gonna leave on a high note. I'm gonna thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for letting me.
I wish we'll do part 2. And
I'm always available.
This has been great.
Talk about music and the band with you.
And
I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much. I got a copy of the playlist for the Gear Guys.
Oh, those guys, yes.
Yeah, that you sent me.
Thank you for your support. I appreciate that.
Adonis, thank you so much for supporting the band.
There's more to come. Don't worry.
I'm really appreciative. All the guys, me, Ben, Kevin, Frank Persico, the lead guitarist. I wish I could have been here to meet you. They will. We'll all meet you sooner or later.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rick.
I'll talk to you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Ricky's Picks.
So here we are, the first edition of Ricky's Picks. I selected the bands I think everyone in the world should know. You might know a few already. Since COVID has affected us all, especially the indie artists playing clubs, I'd like to point out Joe Caravella's The Rain. Emotional Design is the perfect power pop meets classic rock standard. Lucky number 13. That's the position. Hope you enjoyed his interview. Also on my list are Cats in Space, who bring their classic UK AOR sound with I Fell Out of Love with Rock and Roll. Queen, Mott the Hoople, classic glam rock. It's all there. Guitar players will love Jeremy Etch's Fire Dancer. Taking My Chances, featuring Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominee Adrian Smith of Iron Maiden and the always great Richie Kotzen. Richie sings and plays at a different level. Special shout out to Shark Island's acoustic version of Paris Calling. Expert sound provided by Alex Kane, who also makes a mean t-shirt. And then there's Shadow and the Thrills version of Gnarls Barkley's Crazy. It's just tremendous. There's the Playful Licorice Quartet, featuring keyboard extraordinaire Roger Manning Jr. Do you remember Jellyfish? Also featured are Nick Perry and the Underground Thieves' White Noise, Christopher Shane's Any Given Sundays, which is an homage to being hungover Sunday morning in church. Duke Smith and the Restless Hearts, Same to You. It's classic power pop meets new wave. Georgia Thunderbolt's Chicken Fried Looking for a Friend, and then you have Low Cut Connie's Private Lives. All great songs. A few times a month, I'll bring you songs you should know. Keep visiting. I'll pack a few surprises. And folks, I promise to get better. I really, really do.